All right. So are you selling on Amazon, and do you feel that working with seller support can be, well, sometimes a challenge because oftentimes you have to go to Amazon and say, I need your help with things. But sometimes the response doesn't come back what you're hoping for. And so it is nice that Amazon provides us supports, but sometimes it can almost feel like you have to explain to the person what it is you're even trying to accomplish. And to help us navigate through this, I'm super excited to bring on John Cavendish to talk about this and how you can navigate this world to get things done with Amazon. So, John, first off, thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me on, Kevin.
Yeah. So, one of the things I do want to just at the start of this say, Amazon, as much as we all kind of complain about seller support, kudos to them for giving us the ability to actually reach out and talk to a person. So if you've ever dealt with, let's say, Pinterest or Facebook, or maybe I should say just some of the other tech platforms, there's no one you can talk to. And even if you're spending, ungodly amounts of money on ads or whatever the case is, you might, just fill out a form or, whatever the case is. And so Amazon at least allows us to, you can put in a case and most likely you could have your phone ringing to talk to a person almost instantly. And so we got to give them kudos to that. Or chats, you can talk to someone pretty quickly on, if you put in a text version of a case through email, you can usually hear back relatively quickly. So there's good there, right?
Yeah, there's definitely good there. I mean, yeah, as you shared, like definitely comparing it to something like PayPal or Facebook, like the worst people, they're even worse, they're far worse to deal with.
Right, exactly. Or sometimes, pick your favorite airline or cable company or power company. It may be very hard to get someone on the phone to deal with, a simple issue. So it's not just Amazon. It's hard to find good people these days too. So, we don't want to beat up too much on customer support. And there's a lot of hardworking people that really care and want to do a good job at Amazon and all these other places too. But sometimes it's the systems that they're given too. And so, before we get into all that discussion though, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this business.
Yeah, so I've been in the Amazon ecosystem, I guess, for like 7 years now. I was a seller, started back in 2015. Did that for a few years. Did Europe all before they had all this stuff set up. For, as you know, before they set up all of the reports, the VAT reports, before they actually recommended anyone, we set up on all that stuff through like third parties before it all existed. Grew that business, sold the majority of that, started a full service agency. We then ran that for a couple of years, and then out of that came Seller Candy, which is what we do now, which is a very specifically, we deal with Amazon support, and we give like outcome driven support to scaling sellers who don't want to deal with the headache of dealing with Amazon, basically.
Gotcha. Now, what made you decide to switch from like full service agency doing a little bit of everything to going niche on something like seller support?
It was actually that, like, I know that a lot of sellers out there, if you're talking to the actual sellers, like people who just want to sell on Amazon, they've chosen a product because they know it fits the market and they're going after the market need. The problem I had with having an agency is that not everyone has that. So lots of people have products, but they don't fit the marketplace, and they need someone to help them. And we wanted to help them, but you can't always deliver the outcome, which is, a scaling business.
Right.
The product doesn't fit the Amazon marketplace. So with Seller Candy, what we did is we took this little bit of the service and was like, we can deliver an amazing experience to everyone who needs like outcome driven assistance. And every time we can create a raving fan, because we can deliver an amazing experience to all of them, as opposed to full service where the price has to be 5 times as much and we can't deliver the same outcome to everyone because it's just not possible.
Got it. Yeah, that is an interesting thing to point out, is that, some people can work with an agency and get great results. Someone else might work with the same agency and not get great results. And it may not necessarily be the agency's fault. It might be the product fit or the competition dynamics or a lot of things outside of that agency or that seller's control. It's just, it's a dynamic marketplace with a lot of factors involved. But the one thing we all have to do is sometimes contact Amazon for a variety of things asking them for their help. Now, the general tenor right now, if you were to look at a lot of Facebook groups and having discussion with sellers, is it feels like oftentimes they're dealing with someone who knows where they are, which is fine. You know, people, you know, no country has a monopoly on smart people. But you may be dealing with someone in another part of the world who maybe doesn't fully speak the language that you're communicating to them in, and you're trying to explain something that's fairly technical, and they come back with a response that may not even be remotely answering the question. Even if you don't like the response, it might not even be addressing what you just said. So that seems to be one of the complaints, is there's a lot of like kind of copy and paste, templated answers. And so how do we navigate that? So what are you seeing with some of the challenges with Seller Central? And then we can talk maybe more about like actionable things and how we do that and see where this conversation goes.
Yeah, so you're exactly right. You know, what Amazon's doing is since 2019, they've been actually promoting this. They're trying to get their team to follow their internal wiki tool. It's called Workflow. And basically, you know, they see your question, they follow the wiki through, and they find the answer and they copy and paste it. And they're graded on that. You know, like their internal KPIs where it's done is, you know, they had to copy and paste, and the quality control they do is, did they copy and paste? So you can't, it's actually harder to go above and beyond. And that's where we get our people from. We get the people who were hired pre-2019 being trained and then hate the fact that all they're allowed to do is copy and paste because it's
right.
Yeah, it's horrible for them and for us. You know, we don't want to, if you're in a job, you don't want to send people a copy and paste response that doesn't fit their question. Right.
You're just going through a series of yes, no, whatever, you know, the questions are. So there's only as good as the system allows them to be.
Yeah. And then on top of that, your other KPI is 8 minutes. So you've got to get off that case within 8 minutes. So otherwise you don't get your bonus. You know, your performance bonus is based on copying and pasting, 8 minutes, and lack of actually not reopening a case. So there is a performance that they don't want the customer to reopen the case. So that does hit their metrics.
Oh,
but it's supposed to get better, but you know, the other two metrics are to close it as fast as possible. And
got it. Okay. So that's interesting. So there's three components I just heard there, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. There's the first component of, did they use the standard answer, which is copy and paste? Did they spend less than 8 minutes, which I've always heard that they're graded on how quickly can they get through these cases. So that oftentimes is one, but I didn't know that was one, which is a good, actually, this is in our favor. Was the case reopened? So that also, I think, would lend itself to, I've heard conflicting, should you reopen the case or just create a new one? And so
reopen is the way we go. We always say reopen.
Got it. So always reopen the case, and you get what, 5 days to reopen the case?
It depends on the case. I thought it was 48 hours. But, I think it depends on the one.
Got it. It could depend on like the type of issue. Yeah. Okay. So it's better to just,
those are the three which I talked to recently about one of our new hirees, and she was like, yeah, my metrics are great. And I was like, yeah, we don't hire this person because we don't hire the people that hit the try and hit the metrics.
On the Amazon side of things. Got it.
On the Amazon side. Yeah. We don't like
so
that.
You're hiring them from there. Okay. So you're hiring people that understand the system, but aren't basically, for lack of a better phrase, they weren't drinking the Kool-Aid in the system of you must do things a certain way. So, okay. So then better to reopen the case. Now, one of the other debates that's been over time is, once you reopen the case, do you just say, just so you know, that was not what I was trying to get across here? Or do you copy and paste a lot of your original description? Because the complaint in the debate a lot of sellers have had over the years is anyone even really going back and checking what I originally said? If I reopen,
that's a great question. And I would have to ask our technical team what their most up-to-date view on that is. Personally, I would reiterate. I'll try and rephrase.
Right.
But I haven't opened a case in 2 years, so it's I'd have to ask our team on that one. But that's a great question. I would probably rephrase.
Okay. Got it. So it comes down to rephrasing, which is what I've always kind of thought. There's that, old saying that repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, is the definition of insanity. So oftentimes we think we're being 100% clear. And maybe if we were to explain it to another seller, what we're saying is 100% clear. But, can you talk a little bit about your understanding from now having hired lots of people who have come from the seller support world? What does their training look like? And what is the tenure, meaning how long has the average person been there who we're probably sending things to?
Yeah. So in all honesty, you just have to keep raising until you get through to somebody who's tenured enough to understand.
Okay.
Because we as a company don't hire anyone that's been at Amazon earlier than 2019. So it's 2018 or before is who we hire, because they've had the training to how to proactively solve issues before the support system came in, and just they were trained to use the system.
Right.
But now they're just trained to use the system, which kind of sucks. And the issue that being that we're hiring all those people now. So, we're hiring more and more of them. And what I heard actually today from the team is that apparently, seller candy is now a buzz amongst the BPOs in the Philippines, where people want to move from Amazon to work for us. So,
got it.
Which is a great thing. I don't want us to get too highlighted on Amazon's radar for that.
Right.
But it means we don't want to hire all of them, because we need the people on the other side who can actually solve these issues.
Yes, exactly. So you're hiring people to communicate with Seller Central. Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting. So for these folks who are reiterating over and over again, on the flip side, there's people who, what is the career ladder for someone on the Seller Central side? Because I've always heard that, like, oftentimes you're dealing with someone who might be brand new, and if they're good at their job, they're probably promoted to a supervisor or quality assurance or something like that. Like, is that true? Or
I wouldn't like to speak on that too much, because I honestly haven't dove in too deep with our team members. I could ask them and come back to you, though. It'd be super interesting. I'll ask the next person I interview that question.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, because I'm curious about that, because that's one of the things I've heard, is that oftentimes the person who you're dealing with is still relatively new. And so there is a feeling, from what I've always heard, is the person you're dealing with, oftentimes more about how the system works than they do. So you almost have to kind of explain how things work. Or is that a fair statement?
I mean, that's what we try and get our agents to do, because our agents do know how things work. So we always try and work around first. So, like, if there's a workaround, like if it's something that you can do through a flat file or a feed file first, at least upload the feed file, because then you've got the feed file reference number.
Right.
And then you can raise it in the case. And then through that case, at least we can then either raise case about it or call and say, this is our feed file reference number. Now you must know what to do, because you just have to raise this thing. So always telling them what to do as much as possible is the best way, if possible. Like, I need you to refresh the listing. I need you to do this. I need you to do that.
Got it. Okay. So basically we need to try to work it out ourselves first before you go to seller support. And I think a lot of times seller support will come back and say, here's the help reference page on how to do that, which oftentimes that might be fair enough. They're not there as our virtual assistants to do everything for us. They're more to help us when issues come up.
Yeah.
What would you say are the big buckets of issues that you're seeing right now, or that your team is saying, these are the things that seem to be the most often, whether it's catalog or, inventory or whatever? What are you seeing are the big issues right now?
I mean, so catalog's getting worse and worse. I mean, getting updates pushed through to the catalog. Right. And Amazon's now beta testing the category listing report in some accounts, so that you can actually download it directly without having to request it.
Oh, okay. So real quick, I'm familiar with category listings report, but for those who aren't, what is it and how do you get it?
So traditionally, which is still most of the time now, it is like basically a feed file, a flat file with all your current listing content in it. And if you want it, you just have to raise a case to Amazon saying, please enable my category listing report. It'll appear in your account for 7 days. You can download it. And it sort of works, just like everything else in Amazon. You download it, you may upload it, it may upload, right? Or you may have to fix it. to re-upload it.
Right.
But it's really useful to have, because once you have it, you have a backup of all your listings. If Amazon, if something screws up, if something takes it down, you can just re-upload this and refresh all your listings without having to build a flat file for everything, which is great.
Exactly. So that's one of the nice things about category listings reports. And also you get a sense of what is Amazon looking at your product at. Now, the challenge is with catalog. So you said basically there's catalog issues, which we can dive deeper into. And then you're saying there's a couple others.
Yeah. So catalog issues, I mean, as always, suspensions, plans of action, like creating plans of action for our clients, pesticide issues, like just random reasons and bot suspensions that Amazon happens to do. And recently as well, we had the big influx a few months ago of suspected IP claims. That's just some of our resellers as well, but basically Amazon created a load of new bots, and they basically highlighted any brand name mentioned in a listing that didn't originally belong to that brand through the barcode. So if you'd ever resold anything that happened to be like Calvin Klein or something, and someone had created their own listing for it, you get flagged as a suspected IP violation, even though it wasn't one. Oh,
wow. And even though it may have been years ago?
It may have been years ago, maybe an account years ago. It may have been a legit product even, just not under the original barcode. So then we've been going through and fixing a load of that stuff.
Got it. Okay. So things like suspension issues, whether it be the account or just,
listings.
The listings oftentimes seems to be the more common one, where they say, oh, this is a pesticide. It's like, no, this is a shirt, So are there things that, like, if you download the category listings report, and I think if someone's never done this, pause this right now, put in a support case asking for category listings report access. You can just go into inventory reports and pull it. And you can see how Amazon is looking at your products from a database standpoint. So every row is a product and every column is a field or an attribute. And so you can see, like, is there something weird in there that doesn't make sense to you? And so, that could help also figure out some of these issues. Now, going back to what you said before with catalog issues is pushing through some of your changes. You might be brand registered. You might have gone through all the channels, but you want to make a change and they won't let you.
Yeah.
And you try the flat file and there's weird errors that come up. How do you navigate around some of these errors without going to seller support?
So actually what you said about downloading it and looking for any issues, say if you have a suspension, that's like the best thing to do for a suspension is to do exactly what you said, like download the category listing report. And you could basically flash your listing there. You could put the most generic content ever into your listing, try and refresh it. And because Amazon's locked your listing because they've suspended it, you can't edit it on the front end, but you can edit it on the back end.
Oh, okay.
And then you can call up Amazon, do your plan of action if you have to do one, and then basically get them to refresh the listing and it will come back vanilla as vanilla can be. Then you can start re-adding your content and checking it and making sure that it was probably a content issue, the reason it was initially suspended, unless you had a high return rate or voice of the customer, which is the other major reason. So high return rate's probably the biggest reason people get suspended.
What is the high return rate that Amazon seems to be looking for?
It depends on the product, but usually for us, it's just new products, like new SKUs, and it's like a 10% return rate because they had some issues with the start of the SKU. But we always get it back. Like there's never an issue there. It's just you have to appeal to Amazon and tell them what change you've made, which hopefully is no change. It's just people didn't like the product and they returned it for the wrong reason most of the time once we look at all the real feedback. Got it.
Okay, so we'll get into the plan of action and how to deal with those type of things here in a moment. But first, I do want to dive a little bit deeper into when people have the catalog issues that they're trying to push through. How do you, when you go to seller support and you want them to change the title and they come back to you and say, like, we have to check with the brand owner, hashtag I am the brand owner, why are you asking me this? Like, how do you best communicate that on the front end and react when they come back and say something that doesn't even make sense, which maybe they're just doing what they're supposed to do because that's what the wiki tells them to say?
Exactly. So there's two routes. One route is through brand registry. So trying to go through brand registry, but as you said, they come back with a generic case, which is super annoying.
Mm-hmm.
So we do it through the feed files, through flat files.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure the change has been pushed through a feed file. So you've got the feed file reference number.
Mm-hmm.
And then calling is the way to get through at the end of the day. So go onto the page, request a call back so that you can get through to the team, and then ask to be put through to the captive team. Hopefully someone will put you through after a couple of times of calling. And then quote the feed file up the number and say, hey, I did this. I'm the brand owner. Can you please investigate and refresh the listing? And it sounds super simple. And then 2 hours later, you get the result, hopefully.
Okay. So what happens when you don't? Because oftentimes they'll come back with something else that's copied and pasted, and maybe they were reading the wrong wiki or something like that. Like what are some ways when you just keep getting the same errors, not the same errors, but the same issues from seller support?
Well, hopefully you're on the phone. Like, you have to be on the phone. And then you just keep calling. You just keep calling. I mean, that's what we get our team to do. Just if you have to call them 3 or 4 times, you got to call them 3 or 4 times until you get through to a person who understands and does it for you.
Okay.
So you have to have the case number and the feed file upload number. You have to have those so they can trace it and track it, and they put you through to the right team.
Got it. So that's another debate. Put it all in writing or call. Would you do one or the other?
I think always in writing first, then call. Because if it's not in writing, and if you haven't got the case number and the reference number, you're just going to go around in circles,
right? Because
there's no written trace of it. So when you call back, you're back at the start again. So that's the way we do it: writing, then call.
Got it. Okay. So you write and then you call and you say, hey, here's the issue. Here's what I need fixed. So that way, if you at least put it in writing, you've at least outlined your case, how you want, as opposed to essentially asking the person on the phone to transpose or transcribe, I guess, what it is that you're trying to say in their wording, which might not be the same as how you would word it. And especially if you understand the issue potentially better than that person, because oftentimes when you do on the phone, they're just forwarding it to someone else, right? They're not necessarily the person who's actually going to fix it.
And then there's who has ownership then. And since you don't see that, then you have no idea if it's being elevated. You can't follow it. All you can do is call up again, and then you're kind of lost.
Got it.
It's the worst thing.
Okay. So then when you want things elevated, escalated, like how do you do that? Because it seems like over the years, there's always been a little bit of hesitation of the BPO, which is the third parties. I think that Amazon is oftentimes hiring to take care of a lot of these things. Like, I don't know if they have maybe as an organization metrics of not forwarding it on to people like actually at Amazon, or handling it internally. So they always seem like they're resistant to forwarding things on. And it seems like it's only gotten more resistant. So how do you escalate things to get things done if you're just not getting anywhere?
That's a great question. To be honest, we just call. Like once we've raised, 1 to 3 written tickets, it's just calling. Like there's no point raising more cases. Almost, you just get stuck in this week or two of loop. And we just want to get out of that as soon as possible, because we have people who want to deliver results. Like, our team's all about delivering results, and our clients don't pay us to sit around and continue replying to cases that are just generic rubbish back. So we call. Okay,
got it. Well, let's start back to the beginning of that. What is kind of a format of how you would suggest writing a case?
That's a good question.
How would you teach your team, this is the way you should write a case?
Oh, I don't teach the team. That's the like, I don't teach the team. We have a training department.
Oh, sure. How would your training department teach that?
That's a good question. I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay.
So we train continuously, and we also train based on the people that we hire new in from seller support. We ask them, and we can continuously update the training documents, but I haven't written a case in forever. personally. I could bring on one of my technical guys and they can give you a very good answer on that.
Sure. Okay. So, all right. So then let's go into the plan of action. So, the plan of action itself, how does that get done so effectively so that you can, you can get, whether it be your listing reinstated or your account reinstated. So explain the plan of action process and what is Amazon looking for?
I mean, the plan of action process is quite simple because all Amazon's looking for is admitting that you did something wrong, even though half the time you didn't do something wrong.
Right.
Putting a plan in place for how it's going to happen, like maybe steps 1, 2, 3. Never, they don't care if you say sorry about it. They don't care if you beg with them. They don't care if you say you didn't do anything wrong. They're just looking for admitting it, and then the 1 to 5 steps of how you're going to put it right.
Okay.
And we've seen some hilarious errors in accounts. We just have to admit it and move forward. The aim is to get the product back as quickly as possible, not to show Amazon that they were wrong about it, because they are. Sometimes. So,
and this is more dealing with not like, hey, I need you to change the title. This is more like Amazon is taking down a listing or a product, or an account. So what in the cases where someone has not done anything wrong, is how do you find this is what I did wrong, even if you either perceive you didn't do anything wrong or legitimately Amazon is the one that's wrong? But sometimes telling them they're wrong is probably not the most effective. And we're trying to be effective, not get our feelings across.
Yeah, who cares if we're right or wrong? We just want to be back selling. Yes, I think the funniest one was that Amazon found some stock in one of our clients. Amazon found some inventory in the warehouse and added it back to their inventory. So they didn't send the inventory in, but 5 units reappeared on their listing. And then they were sold, and then they got people complain they were used sold as new. So they must have been sitting around the warehouse, got beaten up a bit, and then they arrived in poor condition to a customer. And I think it went along the lines of, we didn't send in any inventory, but if we did, we would check in this way, and this way. We'll try not send in enemy inventory again that we didn't send in. Just make it obvious we didn't send this in, but this is how we check the process for making sure that things are not used.
Got it. So even though you're not in the wrong, and Amazon is even documented, like, hey, we checked, this is the issue.
Yeah.
But here's how we make sure this is not the issue. So basically, you're not admitting fault, but you're saying, here's how we make sure that issue doesn't happen on our side.
Yeah, like basically that. And I think that's it. I had another thought, but it's left my mind.
Now, does it make more sense to say this is our process, or we've updated our process to make sure that X, Y, and Z?
That's a good question. I think it depends on the situation.
Okay.
Usually it will be an update, I assume. But if the products weren't there, then we could just say this is our process, because they're just looking for tick boxes, as with everything else. Just making sure that what we did makes sense. If we have to raise it to someone who actually knows what they're talking about in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And, one issue I've heard a lot of people talking about is products being mislabeled by Amazon in their warehouse. So for example, you have a green and a red variation. Yeah. You label them all properly, and then when they get to the warehouse, Amazon relabels them, switches them around. And I'm not 100% sure how that even would happen, but it seems like that's a complaint I'm hearing more. And I've had it happen to myself, even, where it's like, I return some inventory back of both of them, doing a multi-channel fulfillment order to myself, and I open up, okay, this one says it's the red, this one says it's the green, but I open the box and they're flipped. Yeah. So it's clearly, and it's Amazon's label because it's got the LPN number on it, not mine. So is it good to show like, hey, here's the images, but here's how we make sure, always add the, here's how we make sure this doesn't happen? Or is it better to just say sorry.
That's all right.
No, sorry, we messed up. Here's our plan of action, 3-step process or something.
So with that one, I think our team would go back and tell them the process that we've already followed, which would be like, we sent it in like this. We have this evidence here. We've requested a bin check. The results back from your team were this.
Got it.
Because we'd have to request a bin check. And so we would have told them what we'd done, and they probably wouldn't have done the bin check by the time we'd done the POA because they're slow. But for that type of issue, you request a bin check and they manually go in, and they'll probably come back to you saying it's all good. Then you'll have to go back again saying, please send me pictures showing me the product. Because they'll come back with like, we did a sample of 1 or we did a sample of 2. Sure.
So, okay. Yeah. So the bin check, do you ask them to open the product up or just take a picture of it? Because sometimes people might have boxes, like a generic white box or something like that, where it's going to look the same either way. Do you ask them to open the box? Like, what are some suggestions on that?
I don't think we've had any luck asking them to open boxes, but we've asking them for the pictures of the barcodes, and to check as many as possible. I mean, the real problem with this is that this kind of issue can be one that it's almost impossible to get to the bottom of with Amazon. You might have to extract your inventory,
right? And
then you've got to make a claim against Amazon saying they mislabeled, so it cost you this much, and they may or may not honor that. They probably won't.
Right, but at least you have a case to say, this is why we had these returns, because this was mislabeled. People were expecting green and they got red, and here's why. Here's how we make sure that this doesn't happen. We have a person that checks these manually before, sending them in or whatever the case is. Okay. What are some other issues that you're seeing or coming up or hearing that are coming up that might just be good for people to know, and how they can work with seller support to get things resolved?
So we've covered the content update, plans of action. Your issue with sending in different variations is such a pain. And something we haven't asked for, but would make a lot of sense if you're selling variations, would definitely be to send them in separately, if possible.
Right.
Because Amazon really has a habit of doing that, mislabeling colors, which is the most frustrating thing ever, because the only way to fix that is to pull out your inventory.
Right.
Eventually. Biggest issues. I mean, it was storage limits, but at the moment, things are looking okay.
Yeah, knock on wood, it hasn't been too bad. My storage limits right now are better than they were at the holiday season.
Which is good, yeah.
Which is good, because my sell-through rate is not as high as it was, in the holiday season.
So helping people with that, helping us, downloading all their data and then analyzing like what's really hitting their sell-through rates, what they should and shouldn't be doing on restocking. That's a big thing we've been helping people with, and it's worthwhile making sure they do themselves, is just figuring out what's causing you issues through IPI and doing your best to make it as good as possible before we start coming towards the holiday season again.
Right. Yeah, because that was, I think, where a lot of us got into the bind was, at one point you're down to like a real small number. I think I could only send in like 1,000, standard size products. And, whereas now I can send in like 12,000 or something like that. And it's like, why was it so low before the holidays? And it just kind of slowly inched up. And then all of a sudden they just opened it up, once the holidays have started, but it was hard to react at that point. And then, there's check-in delays and all that other stuff. So keeping on top of that so that we don't hopefully have that issue come, October, they're trying to scramble, trying to figure it out, because there was a lot of question marks on that last year, 2021. Okay. So interesting stuff. So if somebody wanted to learn more about having somebody on your team who would help them with these type of issues, where would they go?
They could just go to sellercandy.com, check out our website. I mean, what we do is when we work with a client, we do an audit of their account. So we look for all this stuff in their account, and we look for everything that might be wrong with their account. For example, you were also saying other things that we find wrong. So it could be like links to your storefront, just broken links and all the stuff that should be working on your listing, which has broken at some point in the past and you didn't notice just because of volume. So we do an audit of all those profit drains, give it to them, and they give us a list of stuff to do. Basically. And then we have a portal. So clients actually work with us through a portal. So they have access to an expert. We help them manage all the stuff they give to us. So it's not like you're sending us an email and we're like, what happened to that? They log everything inside a portal where they can see what's going on. And our team just gets on it, and you see the status and you see communication, and it's super clear. as opposed to working with seller support, which is kind of a pain.
Right, which is all over the place sometimes. Okay,
Yeah.
well, good. Well, this was an interesting conversation. I think better understanding kind of the back end of this, or how to navigate it, because as Jim Rohn once famously said, "Don't wish you were easier, wish you were better." So, Amazon, as much as there's pros and cons of the way they do things with their seller support. I know a lot of people probably could list hundreds of cons that they feel, but at the end of the day, the pros are they at least give us the opportunity to talk to someone and work with things. And so just learn how to navigate it, or potentially hire someone to help you navigate it. So cool. Well, this was an interesting conversation. So I appreciate having you on, John.
Oh, thanks for having me, Kevin. And I hope I can find some kind of interesting part of seller support, which is, we do the boring stuff in the back end of the business.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thanks so much.